Peace be with you. We just did our World Peace Meditation, which we do every Thursday at 7 p.m. in efforts to uplift the global mind. This is something I've been doing since 1984. But we're expanding it now because the world needs much more a calmer and peaceful global mind. And part of that is the merging of the heavens and the earth. So I'm going to do a little prayer about the merging of the heavens and the earth. Leshemikud Kirshabihu Ushihente Be Ilu or Imulaya Chimike Belovke Be there some Shem Kozreal Kolon. Now, in my book called The Sevenfold Peace, there are 7 different levels of peace. And we have peace with the mind, peace with the body, that's a different topic. Peace with the mind, it's with the meditating, like we've been doing. Peace with the family, which is what we're going to be talking about this evening. And peace with the community. Peace with all cultures, and from Native American we talked about the rock people and the plant people and the moving ones, the animals and so forth, and then peace with all the human cultures. Then peace with all cultures, community, peace with all cultures, peace with the ecology, spiritual ecology, and peace with God. The peace with the family is something that we don't talk about so much. However, when we really understand it, Marx in 1848 completely talked about it. He says we must destroy the family if we're going to have complete control over the population. That's what he said. So he seemed to be tuned into it. And clearly Lenin and Stalin understood the concept, and again, they did many things to undermine the family. Why would they want to do that? Well, they do and did have an insight, and being coming from that world, I understood the insight. And the family creates a framework of love, of intimacy, of heart connectedness, of meaning, of value, sense of kind of deeper right and wrong. When we really take a look at the Judeo-Christian tradition, it's like really a big deal here in the sense of intimacy and transmission of understanding and teaching of morals and values. When you destroy the family, you have a significant breakdown in that way. So, what's the reality of that? Well, there's a reality. It does help to understand. People really thought through this, okay? And I understand because I was on the inside of that, I understood what people were thinking. So you have the Frankfurt School, you have Gramsci, and which is what we call neo-Marxism. And because the initial attempt at revolution to get the workers' revolt didn't work. Why? Because they immunized by Christianity, which said, here are values, here's meaning, and we're not going to revolt because we want the family to exist. I'm roughly giving you an idea. Neo-Marxism gets a little smarter and starts talking about a variety of things. Make love, not war. That was a statement in the 60s, but it has deeper meanings because when Gramsci talked, he talked about the pleasure principle being predominant in overruling the order and peace, intimacy, and love that's really created in a family setting. So we know what's going on. I knew what was going on in the 60s, and I understood the different pressures that were happening. So what are the results? In the 1950s, only 4% of children were born out out of wedlock, 4%. And now it's about 41%. What does that do? And when you look at the statistics, which most people don't do, that's why I'm going to mention them, we see that in fathers' families, which is what we're talking about when we're talking about out of wedlock, primarily, 71% of the school dropouts come from fatherless families. That's interesting. What happens to those dropouts? What's the chaos that's created socially? Oh, and how about 80% of the young men who go to jail come from fatherless families? Oh, that's interesting. And how about a much higher percentage of teenage girls getting pregnant come from fatherless families? You see where this goes. We call this social chaos. And when it goes a little further, we see that 90% of the runaways come from fatherless families, single-parent families. And we see that sexual abuse is 40 times higher in children from fatherless families. And the research says something like fatal abuse. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but it does mean you die. And there's 100 times more people, young people, dying as a result and growing up in fatherless families. And it could be connected to the drug abuse and so forth. But whatever it is, just look at that chaos and you understand that's a problem. That's what we have to understand. And we need to kind of look back. We have Betty Friedan and Bella Abzug. Maybe people don't remember who they were, but they were studied Marxists. And they started focusing on the women's liberation, but they had a different agenda, make love not war. When we kind of understand that the neo-Marxists had, were a lot more clever than Marx and Lenin and Stalin were, which is like head on. And it still didn't work. When we look at Russia now, it's a Christian nation. How did that happen? Because it didn't work. Okay? Destroying the family doesn't work. It creates social chaos. People don't really like that. People like love. People like feeling connected. Kids do better. Now there are other studies coming out that show that when you have a multiple generation family, kids do even better in terms of their success rate when the grandparents end up over the long term. So we began to look at our world, peace with the family, peace with the community, in a different way, because when you look at the statistics, it's horrendous. But what it does is social chaos. What happens when there's social chaos? We need to, have a big government that controls us. Think about that for a second. Under the original Judeo-Christian tradition, there wasn't emphasis or a need for a big government welfare control state, because the children growing up had a total different background. Love, intimacy, truth, value. And I talk about in my book Conscious Parenting as well, because the whole idea is, that's good, schools are good for math and so forth, but how about a moral compass? Where are you going to learn that? So it starts with the parents. So we go on and on. There's multiple layers of this very conscious effort to create social disaster. It won't work, but it won't work because people are going to wake up to it. And that's exactly what we're talking about now, is peace with the family requires an awareness that it has some value. Sacred relationship is a spiritual path. It takes a lot of courage, and at this point, although it's thousands of years old, it's like the cutting edge, because everything's so upside down. So we have some very interesting kind of situation where we wake up again, peace with the family, and ultimately peace with the family creates peace with the community. And that is where we begin to bring, again, peace for the larger community and success for the larger community, rather than dysfunction and a welfare state that controls everybody. So may everyone be blessed that we, in terms of world peace, in terms of inner peace, in terms of the sevenfold peace, that we start to value again peace with the family and ultimately peace with the community. Blessings to everyone. Peace be with you. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om Takyasa. Okay. Any questions that anyone has? Yes.
Would you recommend homeschooling over sending your kids to a public school these days?
I think people are struggling with those issues, particularly around the issue of vaccination, which is getting clearer and clearer. This is a pretty serious issue. The data is now showing that the young girls who are getting the HPV vaccine actually are getting more cervical cancer. Besides, over 140 of them have died, just from the vaccination. So parents aren't really happy about the situation. So there's a lot more movement to homeschooling, and when they make it more and more difficult, like in California, parents are leaving. Because homeschooling is a way to protect your children and to pass on that. Now the research is showing colleges actually are very interested in homeschool kids because they have a much better education. So there's other data coming out. But the kids are just going to be healthier for exactly the reasons I'm sharing. The data is overwhelming when we look at that. Okay. Any other questions?
As families, grow up, and they often these days get all scattered all over the place, and the children grow up and they move. And is it important to keep that family connection still, even though it's all, not in...
Well, it's a very good question, and I'm going to say yes. I just had my grandchildren from New York here, and then last week I was in Petaluma, and again with grandchildren. And so when you have that energy, it supports everybody, and that's in the two ends of the East Coast, West Coast. So it's good in terms of for everyone to understand they're part of a continuum and to feel that multi-generational love. Kids really do better when they know their grandparents. That's what the research shows. Okay, so the answer is it is worth it. Relationships change, right? They're a kid, young adult. There's always a change. So there's more friendship, but behind that, there's still his family. Any other, and of course, in today's world, we're so mobile, it's real easy to do that. So there needs to be a little effort. Mm-hmm. So, Lahiri Mahasai, is a great liberated householder. And he had thousands of family people he supported in all that, And so it's a spiritual path. So if we take it seriously and understand that being a householder is indeed a spiritual path, then we put a different value on it. Sacred relationship is indeed a spiritual path. So when we put the value on it, it's not this mundane thing that people without that background get. It's sacred relation. That's just a path to liberation. But Lahiri Maharaj and that's why I'm bringing it in, because he's from the Indian tradition. Okay, and so it's valued in India as well.
When you say householder, what do you mean exactly?
People have families.
Okay.
You hold a house. Sadhu walks around, doesn't hold a house.
Mm-hmm.
It's an Indian term.
Okay.
Is it valuable you often see these days parents grow older and they just get put in a home or something. Is that destructive too, or should they be, kept as, something sacred in the family?
It's an excellent question. Not everybody knows, but Shanti's mother, Emma, lived with us for 11 years. And she had made a request not to go to hospice and not to go to a hospital. So we fulfilled that request. It helps me being a doctor, but we made it work. And she died at home with us, at her home here in Patagonia, with us, surrounding her. And that's what she wanted. So is it worth it? The answer is yes. Is it worth it that instead of going to a nursing home, the family's arranged to take care of the parents? In my opinion, yes. And there's lots of things that can be done that you don't really need to to end up in a hospital. For most people, that's not the most natural way to die, and so forth. But also, I'm talking about living. So, if you can organize your family network, like we did with Shanti's mom, fine. She was very happy, and she contributed to the community as well. And so that's what I would say is the family network still gives the best overall results for all the members at whatever age.
With jobs these days, people seem to move around. Do you think it's more important for the family to stay together than someone to take a job somewhere else and move away from the family?
Well, it's a good question. The question is, we're a more mobile society today. Mm-hmm. But we also have a few things going. We have FaceTime, we have Skype, we have telephones. We can talk to each other. So the whole idea is to keep the heart energy going and create enough family relationship time that people get together periodically, during the year. Because we don't want to, it is a more mobile society, and you don't want to stop somebody's career because of whatever. So the whole idea is fine, but we have all these ways to keep communicating. Use them. And try to get together a certain amount of time each year. That's how I see it. The main thing is heart connection. I mean, people can be in the same town and never talk to each other. Doesn't matter if you're locationally near each other. It's keeping the heart energy going. Lahiri Maharaj was the guru of Paramahansa Yogananda. And so you see, because Paramahansa Yogananda's parents were devotees of Lahiri Maharaj. Do you follow what I just said now? So there's all these good things that happen when families are together. And to understand that raising a family is a huge spiritual challenge, dharma, and spiritual path. And we have all kinds of ways that could disrupt it. We have all kinds of ways to bring it together too, because the technology works in different directions. But we need to be aware of the covert attack on the family that has been going on since, Marx, 1848, okay? It's not new, in other words. Do we not know about it? Yeah, people on the political left like myself, of course, yeah, absolutely knew about it. And make love like war, pleasure principle over family unity. Yeah, just have an affair, do whatever you want, doesn't matter. All these morals don't meet, no, it breaks the society down. So we go from 4% in 1950 to 41%. Chaos! Did we not know that? I'm telling you, absolutely knew that. Those who were politically astute and left, we knew that. Okay, now it's time for people to wake up on the other side to see what's going on. Rather than think, oh yeah, this is cool. Any other questions? I think the key is value. God gave this to us, family, relationship, and it's spiritual path, spiritual life. It allows a healthy society to evolve. We need to start valuing it again before we create complete disaster, being politically correct and so forth. It's not really the way it's designed. And so if we were kind of making a meta-communication statement, the statement is the state is wanting to play God in the more Marxist-Leninist approach, okay? Or I'm going to call it neo-Marxist because the neo-Marxists seem to be smarter than the Marxists. And it's like, no, we're not going there. Let the divine be the divine. The family is a way of holding that energy. And then you first now begin to understand the attack on Christianity that's going on in the world. That is not an accident. Who's attacking it? The people who want to create their own, socialist, communist, Leninist, Marxist system to maintain total control. You can't do that unless you create enough chaos that people want that. People it's important to wake up. That's why I'm pointing this out. This is stuff I've known since the 60s when I was on the study of the Red Book. Anybody know what the Red Book is?
Mm-hmm.
It's Mao's little book. Social revolution.
Best-selling book in history.
Short of the Bible. Those are the two biggest books.
Mm-hmm.
But he totally understood what was needed. He got it. Didn't work. Socialist communism hasn't worked. It didn't work in China. I mean, they have something going on, obviously. Didn't work in Russia. Didn't work in Cambodia. Pop-out didn't work. People say, well, what about, Finland but they're not socialist countries. They're just high welfare, but they don't own the means of production. Very key distinction. Venezuela, the second most wealthy country, tries to take over the means, tries to go socialist. It's not working so well. Complete disaster. Okay? Because it just doesn't seem to work for people, whether it's small or whether it's big. People get all their idealism, but when you kind of look at the results, 100 million people killed between China, Russia, and Cambodia. That's not such a good result. So these are all things that somehow people keep forgetting, because people get idealistic or uneducated idealism like you're getting in colleges and so forth. It's like, look around. What works? What doesn't work? And then go from there. So my question is study what was going down and see what's really going on. And what is the best way to evolve spiritually, which is the whole point of everything we're doing. And if you take God out of the equation, which the materialistic Marxist-Leninist neo-Marxist wants to do, then you block people's evolution. And then you can enslave them because they don't get that they have a soul. So what the family does at a soul level is to help you really get, oh, you got a soul, and there's a family soul, and there's a heritage, and there's a whole soul progression. Wow! Then you get your uniqueness. So the research shows that a single parent family has much lower self-esteem and much less soul connection with themselves. That's why you get 100 times more fatal abuse, whatever that means, but I'm thinking it must be drug, or 3 times higher rate of suicide for teenagers, female teenagers. It's like, oh, so that's what we're looking at. Social chaos versus put God at the center of your life, put your spiritual evolution at the center of life, blossom. So this is what's going on, and we can't have peace if we don't pay attention to what's going on, and then do the appropriate things to honor that and keep focused on what brings you to God. Social chaos doesn't bring you to God; it brings you to slavery. And so may everybody be blessed that we truly make that soul connection and create enough peace in the society that we can develop that soul connection. Blessings everyone. Peace be with you on every level.